Hi everyone, and welcome to our Stories of Change Digital Transformation and Education series. Really excited to welcome you on another warm Wednesday evening. I can't believe it. It's kind of a long weekend, and we spend half the long weekend stuck indoors because it's wet, windy, and not nice at all. And then suddenly we're back at work, and we have got the most beautiful weather outside, and we'd probably want to be spending our evenings enjoying the sun, but thank you very much if you've managed to come and join us for this live stream. So to kind of give you a little outline of what's going to happen this evening, please say hello and just introduce yourself in the chat. Really pleased to see Alan Campbell has joined us, and he's looking forward to hearing the stories. And you can get him on Twitter at Mr. Campbell_PE29. And he's going for an ice cream, and the ice cream flavour would be rum and raisin, which sounds pretty delicious. So thank you so much for joining us. I've got a couple of people who are joining me this evening as well to tell their story of change. So that's Annabelle Roger, and she's at Tinto Primary School, a class teacher, the ICT coordinator. Been there 6 years, so well embedded in the community there, and leading digital transformation, and looking forward to telling that story of change. And then we also got Leanne Ferguson. Couldn't believe it, 19 years in the school, which is just absolutely fantastic. Really long service there to that community. So that's fantastic. So Colburn Primary School, and be telling the story about the digital transformation there. So last week we very much had a focus on some couple of secondary schools, and this week we've got some really exciting stuff planned to share primary colleagues' stories. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also really pleased. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner of my slide there that I'm talking about London 19, hashtag London 19. So that's where I was at Google Innovator Academy, which has kind of given me the idea and the impetus to come and do this live stream session. So I've been working with these trainers in helping them become Google certified trainers. They can help build the capacity of the colleagues that they work with across their learning community. And Angie Kahoff is my mentor, who I work with really closely to kind of help bring these episodes together. So thank you so much for joining us, Angie. And it's nice to see that you pick cookie dough ice cream. That's really delicious. And another person who's dropped in, who's also really supportive of our live streams, is Karen, and she works in headquarters, looking after all things digital and education for South Hampshire Council. And I can see that it's a mint chocolate chip, so that's a really good flavour. I'm an orange Calippo kind of guy, if anyone's wondering. But thank you for joining us. Such a lovely evening. So we're going to kick off with me just doing a few thoughts about digital transformation, and then we'll get stuck into the stories of change. So last week I was talking about why we were wanting to drive digital transformation, and what are your drivers for digital transformation in your establishment. So I guess we were trying to unpack and unpick what some of the motivations, what the purpose is for that change. So if we're going to invest time, we're going to probably invest money in buying devices or training to change what we do. I guess having a really clear understanding about why we're doing that is super important. So we've got to have kind of clear vision in what we want to achieve, and understand the drivers for your context. And I think it's important that digital transformation is different for different establishments, because we're looking at having tailored approaches for individual establishments. So there might be at a strategic level for a local authority or a cluster of schools a shared vision or a shared desire. But if we really bring that down to the establishment that you're working in and where you're teaching and the learners that you're working with, what is the drivers for that change? So I talked a little bit about my drivers being to create unique and memorable experiences for young people. And why do we want to create those experiences? Well, people are inspired by activities that they do when they're at school, and it's the activities that they do at school which enthuse them and excite them about particular subjects. If we're getting people interested and excited about technology, and in my case, particularly computing science, and then that's something that they go on to study at further education or higher education, or they go into some kind of apprenticeship or further training in that area, that's going to really help kind of bring them on in that field. And I think that's, that's what we want to do for, all our different subject areas. And, I know primary colleagues there, they want to instill a love of learning into young people. So being able to use digital technology to do that is so important. And I think when you have really good technology embedded into a curriculum, learners can understand the power of technology and the power it has to affect change, just not on the way their lives are now, but it can make what they do easier, or it can allow them to produce more work, or it can allow them to create richer content. So they're getting that kind of immediate feedback. For the future, they'll also hopefully be able to recognize what impact that can have on their future life. So the more we can do with engaging them in digital technology, be it collaborative working or actually getting on and coding, the better they are going to be prepared for this future world. So I don't know, defined or suggested that digital transformation was creating this shift in culture and pedagogy. And this is what we want from digital transformation in our schools, and we need to begin to focus on the how we go about doing that. So what practical steps are we going to take to be able to begin our journey of change? And I think this is where we start to look at people talking about the transformation journey. So you start off by identifying where you would like to be and what your motivations, what's that vision, and we've started to unpick that. But before we can do that, I think it's really important to take a step back and reflect upon where you are now. So technology for me has to serve two purposes. So we're obviously looking at it to enhance learning and teaching, change that experience in the classroom for young people. But it also needs to be able to support the work that all our colleagues are doing. So is that improving processes, or is it making what they do, does it facilitate their work better, let them do their jobs better? And, if technology isn't making things better, or for the person who's using it, the teacher, the educator, and it's not making it better for the learners either, then I don't think it's being used correctly, or it's the right piece of technology at that time. So it should definitely be doing one of those two things. And then you need to identify in your curriculum what role does technology currently play. So if you were going to look at a learner's typical weekly experience, where is the use of technology, and what value is it adding to the learning, or what value is it adding to the experience that young person is getting? So if you're not seeing value being added, or you're not seeing lots of technology usage, then you've identified your key drivers for change, and now you're seeing what's happening at the moment. So this is where we're going to be able to begin to shape a journey of change. So let's first off look at inclusion in our current curriculum provision. And then once we've got that, we're going to probably start to count the number of devices that we have in our schools. So digital transformation isn't just about the number of devices or the types of devices you have. So I'm not saying, more devices is going to mean that you have gone through a digital transformation process. It's about how the devices are being used. So when you're looking at that, what technology are we currently using in the classroom, it might be brilliant. Everyone's got one-to-one devices. You go, I think I've already digitally transformed. Actually, if people are just sat there passively using the device like they used the device when they were, say, using textbooks and jotters or exercise books and worksheets, then actually we've just substituted the technology into an environment. We've not actually changed what we're doing. We've not made the learning experience any richer. So even if you've got just a couple of devices, but you're doing exciting things with it, for instance, introducing coding into the classroom, or looking at some kind of augmented reality, or exploring parts of the curriculum that you normally wouldn't without that technology, then I would say a little bit of technology that's having a big impact there is potentially making a better difference than having lots of children with lots of devices who are doing broadly similar stuff to what they did before. So, our focus on that curriculum experience is how are we using it? So once we've had a little look at, the learner experience, I think it's also really important to look at the current capacity of our colleagues. So, from a training point of view, how confident are the staff that we're working with? And there may be some people who you think, wow, if we give them more technology and more time to be able to embed that into their curriculum, they're going to be able to run away and do lots of stuff and, be trailblazers. Then I think that is really good. But I also think there's going to be colleagues out there who are going to need lots of training and lots of support. So I know one of the things we've done here in South Lanarkshire is we've begun to build ourselves a Google certified trainer network. So we've got nearly 20 trainers across the local authority who are happy to work across their learning communities in providing training and support. So it's about reaching out and finding people. So these are the starts of the kind of ideas that you're doing when you're identifying where you are now. So, we've looked at the curriculum experience, we've looked at the types of devices and how they're being used, and then we've also looked at the current capacity of our colleagues who will be using the technology with learners, and just trying to identify and begin to think about where we're going to need to fill in the gaps. And that might lead you to then start thinking about, well, actually, I'm quite keen to increase the number of devices we have, so then we're going to need to kind of look at infrastructure, and it's going to bring up lots of other questions. So I guess I'm going to set you some homework between now and when you come and watch episode 3 next week. Have a little think about where you are now and what the digital environment looks like that you and your colleagues are working in, and what experiences are you providing your young people, children and learners. Because if you've got a clear idea of that, and you've got a clear idea from last week's episode about what your drivers for change are, then hopefully next week I'll be able to give you some more tips and thoughts in terms of how we begin to focus on fleshing out that journey. So, we've identified the reasons why we want to go on this journey. We've identified where we are now. So what's that journey going to look like, and what types of activities and what types of structures, what types of processes, is it going to be policies, training? All of that we'll start to consider and flesh that out in a bit more detail and understand where we want to go now on our digital transformation journeys. So along with a little bit of input from me next week about that, we'll also have a couple more primary schools, and I've got a feeling I might have them watching this evening, so that's lovely. But I think for now, we'll kind of want to head back to this week, and our first story of change is going to be from Annabelle. So hello, Annabelle, how are you?
Hi, good, yep.
Good. Did we share your ice cream flavour?
I did. I went for pistachio.
I'm just looking at, here we are. I think I've got it here, yeah. With that pistachio. Oh, well, that's a very lovely choice of flavour. So you've got a story then this evening about Tinto Primary School?
I have, yes.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to bringing that on the screen. You'll just have to share the screen with me so I can do that.
Yeah, I'm just getting that up just now. 2 seconds.
Okay. Hello, Mrs. Waddle. Follow Mrs. Waddle, who is at Biscoff flavour. At Mrs. Waddle 38 on Twitter. That's some, Biscoff. Gosh, very nice. Okay, so.
Okay. Right. Here we are. Right, ready when you are.
Excellent, and there you are. You are on the screen, so that is fabulous.
Thank you.
The Tinto Primary School, story of change.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you about Tinto's digital transformation tonight. So Tinto is a rural primary school. Currently we have 88 pupils, which is divided over 4 classes. And our story of transformation goes back a few years. We're in South Lanarkshire, and it's an area of what we described as rather than being traditional SIM deprivation, we have what we call rural deprivation, in that we have a large geographical area. We have a lot of challenges for our pupils in terms of access, and things like broadband can be an issue for us in terms of digital challenges. But we wanted to look at how we could really improve digital learning in our school. So tonight I'm going to take you on our digital journey. we had identified as part of our improvement plan a couple of years ago that we really wanted to look at digital literacy and bring that up the agenda. We've talked in the past about how technology really needs to be on a level with literacy and numeracy, and that young people need to learn to access that, and that it's part of our role in primary school to really give them that literacy as well. So we started to look at how we would improve that, and it meant that we had a development plan this session which enabled protected time, which was really important in terms of my training and also staff development. So tonight I've got a little run through for 4 sections of our digital journey. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about refresh because, as Ian was saying, devices are definitely part of the story, but I'll talk to you about the impact that had. Then I want to talk to you about Google certification, which was my digital upgrade. Then I want to take you through how that worked as a learning community and how we learned together. And then finally, I want to talk to you about the virtual support and the real connections that we've made, which I think has been a really fundamental part of our practice. So first of all, looking at the refresh, we had new devices coming into school, and this really facilitated a new way of working. First of all, Chromebooks. As part of South Lanarkshire, we got Chromebooks in 2018, which we had previously had 9 Windows netbooks, which had been very heavily used and were quite difficult to use, and weren't always practical for what we needed. And then we changed to 9 Chromebooks, which were completely new devices. So when they first came into school, we didn't know much about them. We hadn't had much training. We hadn't had much chance to play with them. And it took a little while to get into the way of using them. And then in 2020, we have become very happy with our Chromebooks. And we've now decided to buy in an additional 5 devices, which you're only talking about small numbers of devices perhaps, but within our school, they are used all day in and out of rooms. And they are definitely a key part of our digital planning. We also have a lot of tablets in school now. We started off with iPads in school already, but we had 1 per class, and it was just 1 tablet in each room, and they were used in different ways, but mostly they became a camera. And then the Parent Council approached us with some funds, and we decided to get some Android tablets in, which meant we could get an additional 1 per class, including the nursery as well. And then in 2020, the nursery, on top of that, then bought an additional 5 iPad minis, so that they now have 1 per key worker, which means 1 per group. And they have integrated that into the way that they work, and I'll talk about that later. And the Parent Council funded a further 5 Android tablets across the school. So now every classroom has 3 tablets. They have an iPad and 2 Android tablets, and that's really opened up the way that we can use them. It means that in some classes, when we had 1 tablet, it meant it was the teacher's device. But now that we have 3, you could have 1 per group. You can have a group using them. You can have children will come and use them and say, can I take that and go and film something and take a photograph of something, go and look something up. So they've become much better used and much more adaptable, which has really helped as well. Now that we have the school app is used for updating, and all the teachers use the tablets, because you can get onto the internet, take a photograph, put it straight up onto the app, and it can be online within 5 minutes. That's made things much more streamlined in terms of communicating with parents as well. So the next thing I wanted to look at is Google certification, which was my digital upgrade. And I think when I first saw the opportunity to become a Google educator, I'd read about it maybe on a website once and thought, oh, that looks quite interesting. I think a colleague had said to me, oh, we should have a look at that because that would be good to learn more about these Google apps. And I was like, oh yeah, that would be quite interesting. But I hadn't really looked into it. And then the opportunity came up through the council to do it. And I saw that it was 4 days of training. And I thought, actually, this would be a really good thing to get in on. And I was really lucky because we had already put it into our improvement plan and there was planning time set aside. I was able to get protected time and get covered and go out and do 4 days of training, which has been hugely beneficial. But it has started a badge addiction, which sadly means that every couple of weeks I get very excited because I discover there's another badge that I could earn. So now my email signature is heaving under the weight of all these badges. But I really enjoy doing self-learning, and it's something that I like doing. But it also helps me in terms of being ICT coordinator. People quite often come to me and say, right, how do you do that? How do you use this? So it's been great for me in terms of being able to go, right, I do know how to do that. I've done the little course on it. I've got my badge. I know what I'm doing. And it makes me feel a lot more empowered to do that. So I've gathered a number of badges, especially over school closure. I've been adding to that quite frequently. And Bitmoji, I have to admit, I have got a bit of a growing Bitmoji addiction, as many teachers have discovered, especially during school closure. It's been quite a good way to have personalization in my classroom, for instance. So that's something I'm learning more about. But it's been really good for me in terms of developing my pedagogy and just helping me to find new ways to engage with the kids. All of these interfaces and products have been really useful. So the next thing I wanted to look at is our learning community, and it's been very much a process of learning together. So once I had started my Google training and having done the Google Educator level 1, my head teacher was supportive in saying, right, okay, you need to start talking to everyone else in school about your training. And I was like, okay, that would be good. But actually, if I'm going to talk to 4 other teachers or 5 other teachers, then I might as well open it up to other schools and do that. And we actually had a learning trio, which is 3 heads who are working together, which is actually 4 schools because there's a shared head in one. And that meant that we actually had a larger pool to look at, sharing practice together. So I offered to do a training session with the whole trio, and I spoke to Karen, the digital literacy support officer, and she offered to come down and help support with that. So we delivered the training together. And then since then, I've done a few sessions, and then we opened it up to the whole learning community and said, actually, if these sessions are running, you're welcome to come and attend. Anyone who wants to come can come and do it. And we found that's really opened up training. One of the things that's very difficult for us in our context is for people to attend centralised training. Getting from here to Hamilton can take 45 minutes or more. So it really helps if people are able to say, right, okay, I'm going to get in the car at the end of the day. I'm going to be at Tinto Primary in 20 minutes, half an hour. And it takes the pressure off trying to get further. It means people are more often freed up to come to training, and they feel that it's more tailored to them as well. You know, I can really talk about how we want to use it, and we can plan together for that. So that's been really good. So we've worked mainly on Google Tools. We've also done a bit of Screencastify training, and we're planning to roll that out next with doing some Google Educator boot camps. And I had just sat down with the heads for all the learning community in February and said, right, okay, so where do we want to go with the Google training? This is what I think we could do. This is what I can offer. And we started to plan for that, which was really exciting. But then, of course, schools have closed, so we've taken that online. So I've set up a Google Classroom. We have a resource hub home there. I've done live Meet classes, and I've started to record those now and put them up on YouTube so that we can have that as a bank of training. But that's been hugely useful. And then in terms of what that's enabled me to do, I think it's really about me providing support. And so I've been able to support my students, particularly thinking about how we use the Chromebooks. I think for the children in my classroom, I have quite a few children with dyslexia or dyslexic tendencies, and using the Chromebooks has been so powerful. Using voice typing, enabling them to put on accessibility tools so that they can get the computer to read to them. All of those things have been so powerful. And now that we're in closure, I've been able to, using Chromebooks at home, people who've borrowed or had devices given to them, they've also been able to switch those tools on for themselves. They've been able to use that. So it's really empowered them. And I think through doing that, it's also worked really closely with parents. So that's developed the school as a whole community. And then looking beyond that, obviously working across other schools, that's extended out to the whole learning community. And I've actually done quite a lot of training recently with support staff, which has really made them feel really empowered to work more closely in the classroom and to understand the technology the children are using, which is really helping. But I think the thing that's really opened up for me professionally is that it's generated this whole support network that I would not have had access to otherwise. Becoming a Google trainer has been key, obviously, and there is an international network that you get access to when you become a Google trainer, and that's been hugely useful in terms of developing what I can do and just opening my eyes up to what other people are trying to do out there. It's really, really interesting and inspirational. Within South Lanarkshire Council, we've now got this Google Educator group, which is really exciting, and it's a great make new connections across the authority. And sometimes working down in the depths of Clydesdale, you can feel quite remote from other areas. So it's really, really good to have good, strong connections across the whole authority. And that's really helped me. And then looking wider, there's Google Educator Group Scotland, and I've started to make some connections with them. The work they're doing is really interesting, and all kinds of work that I wouldn't have ever seen before has really been opened up. So that's been great. I think Twitter has been my greatest professional dialogue tool, especially over the last 6 months or so. It's such an easy way to connect with people and to see what other people are doing, and also to frame what I'm doing and put that out there and say, look, this is what we're doing in South Lanarkshire. It's really becoming quite exciting. Things are moving quickly. And I think Twitter's been a great tool for that. And also I found Facebook Google teachers are very active and very keen to share things, very happy to show you what they're doing. And it's a really open, supportive network. So I think that's been really developmental for the way that we work as well. So I guess coming out of this, my sort of message would be, if you're looking at a digital journey, then I think embracing change is the really important thing, and change will take you somewhere else. It will not let you stand still. So transformation will always evolve things, and going with that, I think, is a really empowering thing. And I've really enjoyed the journey that we've been on so far. So my kind of takeaway from all of this is that my digital transformation has transformed me, it's transformed my whole network, my school, my classroom, and it's really changed the way that I approach teaching, which has been, you can't really ask for a bigger transformation than that as a teacher. It's really, I hate using the word pedagogy in a way, but I think it really has been a pedagogical shift. So for me, it's really been a positive step. But that's the Tinto journey, I would say. But I hope that's been useful, and I've enjoyed sharing it.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing it, Annabelle. Lots of things I kind of picked up on there. I guess one of them was about the communication with parents. So in terms of with your kind of local community, in terms of the use of digital technology by parents, they're quite digitally skilled? Are they quite rich? Are you need to provide any kind of training there or anything? Or
I think it's something that obviously I think everyone in the last few months has really gone through quite a growth curve in terms of digital training of parents. And I think it's something that we had looked at before. We'd offered sort of digital technology evenings, but I think possibly even just those words made a lot of people go, oh, that's not for me, or I already feel like I know a lot about it. And it's, you're preaching to the converted in that case. So I think there's a lot of work to do there, but I think it's really important to be able to talk to the parents about that, because I think with any digital things, kids quite often pick things up and just go with it. They don't question it. They're not going to think twice about it. They're just going to pick it up and use it. And I think parents sometimes are on the back foot. So it's really a good place for schools to come in and go, we can work with you about this. We can talk to you about it. We can find you some good information. We can offer you a bit of training. We can give you videos. And I found just doing things like putting up a little screencastify video in Google Classroom that's actually more aimed at the parent, and just saying, right, okay, so this is how you put the photos up that you're struggling with, or this is how you would switch on this feature in Google Docs. And
so I think really, I kind of wonder if we're going to see a real shift towards more kind of family learning support from school.
Because, I think that would be a positive step.
Yeah, me too. And I think if we've got blended learning as becoming the new normal, and I guess we don't know if when we return in August whether children actually might end up back full time, or we might go, no, they're only in week about or parts of week, so we then know they're going to be doing learning at home. Ensuring parents are supported in that with an understanding of the type of technologies that we're using is so important. I also really liked how you talked about building capacity in yourself and the colleagues around you. And I can see here Alex Stark has commented, welcome Alex this evening, and just saying having this expertise in the school and the learning community is invaluable during school closure for supporting staff, pupils and families. And I think that is absolutely the case, isn't it? If you don't have someone with that expertise, it's very difficult to know who to turn to. So I think having built your capacity to be able to share across your whole learning community, I think that's absolutely fabulous, and it's obviously appreciated. So that's really good. I also see Alex is agreeing about the blended learning, so that's fabulous. And Karen also very complimentary with the support that you're providing. So I think we can all acknowledge that it's being well appreciated. So that's good. So one of the things I shared just while you were talking was there is a site called Badged Tech. Which,
yes.
Oh, you've seen it, have you?
I am very excited by this site. I've been resisting getting too deep into it because I've had a lot of other things on my plate. But yes, that's very high on my I want to get through that list.
Yeah, so a fellow innovator from last year's Sweden cohort, her innovator project, it's called Rachel, her innovator project has been about kind of gathering a single place where people can find all the resources to be able to develop their digital skills. So fabulous website there if people want to check it out. And I also loved how you spoke about the support networks that you developed as well. Our local South Lanarkshire group is obviously a really friendly bunch of people who are excited and sharing lots of ideas, but widen that in terms of across Scotland, the UK, and further afield as well. And I know Angie is watching, and she is in Minnesota at the moment. Her Twitter handle didn't appear originally on the feed for some reason. It got censored by YouTube's comment filter, but it should be now further up if people scroll up and want to follow her on Twitter. Anyway, enough about Twitter and our professional learning networks. Let's bring Leanne in. Hello, Leanne. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Good. Your ice cream of choice?
Oh, pistachio. Strangely like Annabelle. Yeah.
That's spooky, isn't it? Oh, I see Angie's comments. She's still watching. That's good. Mid-afternoon, Minnesota. So there you go. Twitter handle on the screen for sharing. So we can all reach out and make new friends. So thank you very much, Annabelle. Might come back and see you at the very end. Yeah, and I'll bring your screen in, and the stage is yours for kind of stories of digital transformation at Colburn Primary School.
Thank you. Well, as Ian mentioned earlier, I've been a teacher now for 20 years, and 19 of those years, strangely, I've stayed in the one school. I'm at Colburn Primary School as their ICT coordinator, and I have been for those 19 years. When I started teaching all those years ago, I came in at a time of digital transformation even then, because my first year teaching was the first year that we had managed networks in South Lanarkshire that were fully managed, and we were putting in ICT suites. So as a new teacher, I got really involved in helping to set those up, and I absolutely loved it. On the back of that, I then did a PGCE in educational computing, and the basis of that was what was called the SSDN, the Scottish Digital Network, which became GLOW. So I was fascinated by even then, and to see it flourish over the years and become what it's become now has been amazing. But since 2014, I have seen some rapid change, and I'll move on and tell you a bit about that. In 2014, we moved into a brand new school. Our school had been built in 1908, which is really old, and we moved into a brand new school in 2014, and it had everything. It had the ICT suite linked to a library. It had wireless access ports throughout the building. We had an interactive whiteboard in every single room that moved up and down so small people and big people could reach it. We even had Wi-Fi in our playground, which was awesome. A bit about my school context is that Colburn's a small rural village, just like Annabelle was saying about Tinto. The roll of the school is slightly less than 100, and we have 4 classes, which means that most of our classes, in fact, all of our classes are composite and 2 are multi-composite. So we spend a lot of our time working in groups because it's the only way to teach when you have so many different levels in your class. So it was a steep learning curve even then when I returned to this wonderful building. How are we going to best use this and transform our teaching? And we went about it the best way we could. We attended lots of training. I attended even more training and shared it with the staff. And our only downside at that point was that we had very few useful but portable devices. Not long after, maybe a couple of years after, I was introduced to Google Classroom. And I would say, again, another game changer. So we now had this area that we could work different groupings for different classes, setting up different areas, so bikeability classes for the children that weren't in your class but you had to teach. It was a really, really good, we felt, for collaborative learning. It just really helped pupils sitting around one device or someone sitting with posters while someone's got the device, and it was great that we could use it like that. Another reason it was very, very good was that Colburn gets snow days, because Colburn is an ex-mining area, and it was open cast, so it's flat, and the snow blows across the road, and yeah, you can't get in. So I could still enable my class learning through Google Classroom. It really, really was a bonus there, and it was a great way to keep in touch, and they told me what they were up to with their days, and I helped with them. The only downside to Google Classroom at that point is we didn't have many portable devices, and it was still on PCs, which meant, you know, log on to the PC, log on to Glow, and then access Google Classroom. So it was a little bit clunky in that term. Dawn of the Chromebook, yet another key point in our digital transformation. Myself and the principal teacher of our school attended a showcase event where they were showcasing the new devices that would be available for refresh. And we came across a Chromebook, and they were tidying up round about us as we played with this Chromebook. And we thought it was just really going to help us. So in June 2017, as part of our refresh, we were delivered 11 new Chromebooks. And I would have to say they really have changed the way that we teach. Because there was only 11, there was a daily struggle to have enough access to them. We had to try and share them out amongst the 4 classes, and it just wasn't working. So by January 14, I'd managed to convince the head teacher that, January 18, sorry, I'd managed to convince the head teacher that we could possibly have another 14 of these, which means we have about 6 per class, which is ideal for the way we work in groups. And at this point, we needed to see how we could use these Chromebooks better. I've got my digital champions within the school, and they are basically my upper school class presently, who have helped the younger classes be able to access a Chromebook. And it's meant that during this time of change, that all of our pupils in our school already knew how to access Google Classroom and how to work a Chromebook, because my class had gone through each of the other classes between August and Christmas and made sure that everyone could access a Chromebook, knew how to do it, knew their login, and we've absolutely loved them. The ease of access, primary 1 in particular, have really enjoyed having them because it is a single login. They log in and they have access to everything that they need. We wanted to make sure that we used these Chromebooks as well as we could, so we spent a lot of time looking at G Suite tools and at the different apps available. And it has been a lot of training and a lot of learning, but I would have to say it has really, really improved the teaching because they're so adaptable, these different tools. And I would say that probably the best thing for some of my class would be Chromebook extensions. I have 4 dyslexic boys in my class, and they are reluctant learners. But when I turned on the Chromebook extension, Open Dyslexic, their faces lit up. They could see, they could read, they could see what was on the screen, and it was amazing to see. And it has been a transformation for them. It has really been an equality of access to them, because they would watch everyone and wonder, why are they able to do that and I can't? That, teamed with screen readers like Read and Write, meant that they can sit discreetly with that laptop, with that Chromebook, sorry, on their table, set of headphones in, and they have equal access to resources that their classmates do. It's really leveled the playing field for them, and made their learning an easier thing. And it's made them more relaxed in class. It's made them less anxious about learning. So I can't praise the Chromebook extensions enough. Now on to a bit about a huge amount of transformation in terms of me. I got an email from Karen in September with the mention of the Google Certified Educator program, and I thought, I'll go level 1. So I went and asked my head teacher, who granted me permission to go and do level 1. I thought I'd be delighted if I managed it. But having gone in the level 1 training, absolutely loved it. It was one of the best pieces of training I've done in so long. Loved it, passed it, great. Thought that was me. And then Ian and Karen kind of convinced me that I ought to continue. So at that point, I thought, okay, I'll do level 2. So I went and I asked my head teacher again, and she very kindly granted me permission and the time to do level 2. She's been very supportive in this. So again, another fabulous day. Absolutely loved it. Passed it. Thought, yep, that's me. I'm done. Ian and Karen again came along. Would I like to do the trainer? And yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed all of it. It has made a massive difference to my confidence. I've quite happily hidden in Colburn for 19 years, and now I feel more able that I should be able to share these skills that I have with other people. And since December and finding out in January that I had passed the trainer certification, I've been training staff within my own school. I have been making little videos for staff who come in and help within our school, and it's been a wonderful experience. In terms of where we're heading, we were heading towards trying to get all staff through Google Educator Level 1, because they have the skills, and they've proved that since lockdown that they have the skills, but everything's kind of gone up in the air. Another thing we were looking at was workshops where we had parents and pupils together, because we find that, yes, the pupils know how to work it, and the parents at times are anxious about how to work it, and to bring them together would be a very good way of doing it. And as it stands just now, this is possibly going to be something that is remote. Presently, I'm making a lot of Screencastify videos, as Annabelle is, to share with parents and with pupils, you know, how on earth do we navigate Google Classroom on a tablet? A lot of my pupils are accessing it on a phone, and it's been a case of, well, how can we do this? How can we make this as successful as possible for these children and for these parents and for essentially our community? How can we transform their learning and level the playing field for everyone? So that is my story of digital transformation. It has been a long one, and it's been fascinating to watch the change over so many years, and to think back on the times that have been and where we are now. I would say that the graph, if I were to draw it, had been quite steady until we hit recent times, and now we're rocketing with all these new pieces of technology and new things to do, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I think that's really fabulous that things are rocketing now. So thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing. I think one of the things I'd just like to hear a little bit more about is you spoke about how you're like, oh, questions. We should have rehearsed our questions. Yeah, was you started off with 11 Chromebooks, then you added more Chromebooks, so you're now using them in group work. So
Yeah.
how has using Chromebooks for group work changed your pedagogy in the classroom?
Well, at the best of times, I have maybe 3 groups of children at different levels that I've got to work, and within that there are individuals. So for me, I use Google Classroom, and I will, for example, your spelling task today is in your Google Classroom, and I've posted it to a set group of children, and they go in and that task is there for them, and that then releases me to be working within the other group who are needing teacher input. So on a daily basis, at least one of the groups for a literacy lesson will be on a Chromebook. For one of my groups, at some point during maths, they each have an activity based on a Chromebook, whether that just be, you need to revise your multiplication tables, you go, get on with that now. It means I can have them in my classroom with a device at a table. I've got eyes on them. I know they're working. So it's about me sharing my time with my class to make sure that everybody gets equal teaching time and that I can meet the needs as best possible.
It almost seems to me as if it's kind of made, differentiation, which is sometimes naughty secondary school teachers say that's a primary school thing. Differentiation, but I think being able to use the Chromebooks and be able to put that work up onto Classroom has given you that ability to subtly differentiate, get people included in your class, and you spoke about the inclusion side of things, using extensions like Open Dyslexia, for example, which I think if we can use technology to make the curriculum more accessible for young people, they can then learn more and they can feel more engaged. So I think that's incredibly powerful. I also really liked, and Karen picked up on this point as well, about the great use of digital leaders.
Yeah. I don't know where we'd be without them, to be honest. They have a set rule in that they are not allowed to touch the keyboard. So they have to teach these younger pupils how to access without touching the keyboard. And we tend to, well, we did, don't know how it'll work now, large open area, brand new school, nice and airy, and 2 classes in. And basically my big boys and girls teach the little ones.
And I think that's an absolutely fab way of doing it. And, I've also operated this, don't touch the keyboard policy. And I, encourage my computing colleagues not to do that as well, because it could be quite easy to kind of step in and just show a child how to do something, but actually to try and
they never learn.
Talk them through it so they know how to do it themselves. That's where the learning happens. So that's so important. So I had suggested in the chat that maybe we need to look at a badge of honor for our student learner pupil digital leaders.
They'd love it.
Wouldn't it be great to have a kind of a big conference to get all these digital leaders together and kind of give them some of the problems we face as teachers and see if they can solve them for us? Because quite often the young people in classes will know more about the technology and more about the experience than we do as adults, because they're on the receiving end from lots of different teachers. So they see, especially in secondary school, Google Classroom potentially from 15 different teachers, and everybody does things slightly differently. So being able to kind of share their different learning and different experiences will help us as educators learn what works and what doesn't. So a couple of other comments here about accessible learning on the Chromebooks. I think it definitely does. And you also spoke about the training that we did, and I think this is Maureen here saying that Google training was really fab in building confidence. And I think as trainers, I hope one of the things that I've tried to instill across the training that we've done is having faith in your ability, and actually we'll bring Annabelle back in as well. Kind of faith in your abilities as trainers to be able to build the confidence in other people. So I
I think that's the key.
To Alex here about looking at working across schools and learning communities. for building communities worth of people who are undertaking this training, because if we can build the confidence and build the capacity in our colleagues, then all young people are going to get these rich and engaging experiences.
Definitely.
Any thoughts on training there, or ways we can do that?
I'm very close to the Clydesdale hub. Colburn's just next to Lesmahago, so the plan had been to try and access that, but what now?
We started talking to the high school here about running it in their ICT suite.
I love here how Alex is saying it's going to be easier not to touch the keyboard with our 2-meter social distancing. And Angie here's got a top tip of we practice sometimes by holding a cup of tea so that we're not tempted to touch the keyboard. So excellent. So I think one of the things that's kind of really struck me in this time here is we've got lots of our colleagues who are working at home, and we're supporting them in working home to provide learning at home for young people. So they will be learning new skills, and when somebody learns a new skill, they don't then unlearn the skill when they return to their normal environment. And they'll also have a really strong awareness of the good things that work during this period of home learning. So while it's been a forced period through the most awful of circumstances, it has built everybody's knowledge in the use of digital technology. I know teachers across the country and across the world who are in this situation are learning so much more, and they'll be applying that learning to their classrooms for the benefits of their learners. So when we get back to schools, I think we're going to see a seismic shift in pedagogy in terms of how people are sharing their resources and setting up their activities, especially if we're in a blended learning environment. So
good.
Yeah, good.
No,
okay.
Great. You can't go back.
No, absolutely, and we're gonna keep going forward. So, if anyone's got any kind of last final questions, then please do drop them in the chat. And thank you very much for kind of staying along for the whole live stream. If you've been here, it's very much appreciated, because I know it's now nearly 9 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, and the sun is still out. We haven't hit sunset yet, but feedback is obviously really important to help us make these live streams better. So if you go to bit.ly/stream2705, that's for the 27th of May, would really welcome any kind of thoughts and feedback in there, just so that we can continue developing these stories, because I think you've obviously spoken there about Leanne having a gradual change, and then things are kind of rocketed and shot up. I'm assuming you think that's going to continue then.
I'm hopeful. I really am. I think we were essentially, for some staff, they've been forced into it, but as you said, there really can't be any going back. So I think it's a watch the space kind of situation. I'm fascinated with where it's going.
Yeah, and I think it's fabulous that you've seen the school community shift over such a long period of time, and you've noticed that speed of transformation increase more recently, and I wonder if that's also reflected in terms of the pace of technological change is also so much faster now than it ever was, and that is reflective of how society is now. So Karen's suggesting, and I think we'll leave this as our final thought. Will you be our Google innovators of the future? I would think you would be absolutely wonderful candidates for the program. And while this year the delivery style is slightly different, because the Innovator program is going to be done exclusively online, because a lot of people can't travel given the circumstances, maybe that potentially you might not have been able to go to Sydney for 3 days for a training, or California, which were the English-speaking locations, I think, for this year. Maybe your schools wouldn't be willing to pay for that. I'm sure.
Can only ask.
I think getting some time out to be able to do it online, be with my full support, absolutely. So thank you very much for those who've given us feedback. Thank you so much for giving up your Wednesday evening to tell your story. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for watching live, and if people are watching this on catch up, then that's also absolutely fabulous. But all that's left for us to do is to say, hopefully come back next week, 2 more primary schools, hopefully sharing their journeys. Really looking forward to hearing from them, and we'll say bye-bye. So see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.